Hare Krishna. Oops. Hare Krishna. So we'll begin with the Mangala Charanam as usual. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yeah, feeling empowered now. So, our memorization verse for this week is 10:8. So, Lavanga, I'm sure you already know this verse. But whoever doesn't, turn to 10:8 and we'll say it together. Aham sarvasya prabhava mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. Let's do it again. Aham sarvasya prabhava mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. And we'll sing the translation. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Nice, beautiful. Okay, so we're gonna go to chapter 12. We left off with just 3 more verses, 18, 19, and 20. So we're going to pick it up there. Chapter 12, text 18. 18 and 19 are together. So, Sama Shatra Cha Mitre Cha Tatamana Pamanayo Shitoshna Sukha Dukeshu Sama Sangha Vivarjitaha Tulyaninda Stutir Moni Santushto Yena Kenachit Aniketa Stira Matir Bhaktiman Me Priyo Naraha. He's saying again, Bhaktiman. Yesterday we were saying there's Batman, Spider-Man, and Krishna wants us to be Bhakti man. He says whoever becomes a Bhakti man is very dear to him. So let us read the children. Want to read Pragati?
One who is equal to friends and friends and enemies, who is equiposed in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me. Purport. A devotee is always free from all bad association. Sometimes one is praised and sometimes one is defamed. That is the nature of human society. But a devotee is always transcendental to artificial fame and infamy, distress or happiness. He is very patient. He does not speak of anything but the topics about Krishna. Therefore, he is called silent. Silent does not mean that one should not speak. Silent means that one should not speak nonsense. One should speak only of essentials. And the most essential speech for the devotee is to speak for the sake of the Supreme Lord. A devotee is happy in all conditions. Sometimes he may get very palatable foodstuffs, sometimes not, but he is satisfied. Nor does he care for any residential facility. He may sometimes live underneath a tree and he may sometimes live in a very palatial buildings. He is attracted to neither. He is called fixed because he is fixed in his determination and knowledge. We may find some repetition in the descriptions of the qualification of a devotee, but this is just to emphasize the fact that a devotee must acquire all these qualifications. Without good qualifications, one cannot be a pure devotee. Harav abhyaktasya kuto mahad guna. One who is not a devotee has no good qualification. One who wants to be recognized as a devotee should develop the good qualifications. Of course, he does not extraneously endeavor to acquire these qualifications, but engagement in Krishna consciousness and devotional service automatically helps him develop them.
Jai Prabhupada. So in this verse, there's a strong emphasis on being equipoised, right? Krishna lists different dualities of life that one needs to be equipoised within. So one of them is Shatro cha mitre cha. So Shatro means enemies and mitre means friends. So you have to be equal to friends and enemies. And then he says, mana apamanayo. So mana means honor and apamanayo means dishonor. So whether someone, so friends, they tend to say nice things to us, and enemies tend to insult us or dishonor us. So in either case, we need to be equipoised. And then there's, next we have Shita and Ushna. So Shita means cold and Ushna means heat, right? It's Shitoshna Sukadukada. Same thing here. It's the same line as Shitosna Sukadukeshu. So way back in chapter 2, text 14, there's a verse that's very famous that goes, Matrasparshas Tikonteya Sitoshna Sukadukada Agama Payino Nityas Tams Titikshasva Bharata. So Krishna says that the temporary appearance of happiness and distress is just like the appearance of the winter and summer seasons, which come in due course of time and disappear. He says they arise from sense perception only, and one has to tolerate them without being disturbed. So a person who can tolerate these seasonal changes of winter and summer, heat and cold, happiness and distress, honor and dishonor, Krishna is saying is very dear to him. So all these things. And then, also fame and infamy. So, sama again, he says sama, equipoised. And equal, tulya means equal. In ninda means offense, right? Like sadhu ninda, Vaishnav ninda means Vaishnav aparad, basically. Whether you're being defamed, whether you're being offended, or stuti, whether they're glorifying you with prayers, like stotras, offering you glorifications. Tulya, you're equal. Just like tulya literally means like same word is used for the scales. In India, when you go to the vegetable market, they'll put some potatoes there on one side, and then they'll get these weights, 0.5 kg, 1 kg, and then when it's equal, then they just look at how many weights they put there, and they know how much the vegetables weigh, right? So like that. So when the scale is, that's called tulya. So whether we're being insulted or glorified, we are tulya, same. It's not that we're going like this and going like that and going like this. We're just in any situation, tulya, balanced. It's the same. And then he says moni, which means silent. How does Prabhupada explain that? Do we have to just stay quiet all the time? Should I
Not
just
speak nonsense?
not speak nonsense? Yeah. That one should speak of essentials, right? So things that need to be said. And specifically, he says the most essential speech is what? Yeah, to speak about Krishna or to speak for the sake of Krishna, right? To speak in Krishna's service, basically. We may not be speaking directly about Krishna, but we're speaking about something that's related to Krishna's service. Then what's the next thing here? Santushta means satisfied. We talked about that already, right? That came up before because I remembered our friend Santosh, who got initiated, and now he's Sankirtan Das. And yena kena chit. Yeah, so satisfied with anything. Yena kena, whatever. Yena kena just means like with anything, with whatever. And then, so satisfied with whatever, whatever is there, whatever we have, in other words. Then aniketa, niketa means a home or a shelter. And so aniketa means you have no fixed residence. Does that mean we have to live on the street or under a tree? How did Prabhupada explain it? Yeah, he says whether we're sleeping in a tent or sleeping in a palace, it doesn't matter. Devotee's not attached. So yeah, sometimes like, sannyasis travel and stay in all kinds of accommodations. Sometimes they'll go to wealthy countries where they're put up in a 5-star hotel or some very fancy devotee's home. And other times they'll go to more developing countries where, the devotees are not very wealthy and they can't provide something very comfortable. And so it just reminds me of I was watching a video by His Holiness Mahavishnu Swami. So Mahavishnu Swami is very famous in ISKCON. He's a British and he wears a hat that's full of like, different characters and things. Anyway, he's a very flamboyant devotee who plays accordion and goes out in Harinam. Basically all he does now is Harinam. Harinam, he's part of Harinam Ruchi, and he goes all over the world just going out in the streets and chanting Hare Krishna, making everyone chant and dance in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. He's a very ecstatic devotee. So one time he was in Africa and he was in this room and there was a power failure. So it was completely dark. He woke up in the morning and went to the bathroom to, take a shower and all that, get ready for Mangalarti, but it was completely dark. So then he had a candle, he lit the candle, and then he put it on the sink, but he didn't want to put it like right on the sink because it might get wet and go out, right? So he put it on a little jar that was there. And he didn't look carefully about what was in the jar. Anyways, what it was it was like a jar of Vaseline. So, Vaseline is a petroleum product. So he went in the shower and he's like, doing his thing. And then all of a sudden, there was a huge explosion. Oh my God. And then he showed, so what the video was post the aftermath of the explosion. And literally the whole bathroom was black. There was like ash, in the bathtub, on the floor. He didn't get hurt because he was in the shower, so he was like all wet. He didn't get like burnt or anything. But yeah, Krishna protected him. But it was just like, it was a disaster. I was just like, oh, poor Maharaj, what he has to do now, clean that whole bathroom. So yeah, and he was just by himself. He didn't have, like a brahmachari assistant with him or anything. So yeah, but of course it didn't damper his travel plans. He continued traveling and continues going to places like that. So yeah, and he was just laughing. He was just like, he just found it funny. Of course, he learned not to put a candle in a jar of Vaseline again. But yeah, so devotee is not attached to whatever residence they have, they're good with, except whatever Krishna provides and whatever devotees can provide. And then stira means fixed, and mati means determination. So fixed in determination in bhakti, right? Stira, mati, bhaktiman. So as a bhaktiman, as a person engaged in devotional service, they're very fixed. Nothing is going to cause them to go away from devotional service. Nothing is going to shake their determination to serve Krishna, to please Krishna. And Krishna becomes very happy with that. So bhaktiman me, Priyo Naraha. That Nara, that human, is very Priya, he says to him. So Prabhupada makes an interesting point here in the purport that that these good qualifications that Krishna is talking about, they come automatically as a result of our devotional service. He says that one does not need to extraneously endeavor to acquire these qualifications, but engagement in Krishna consciousness and devotional service automatically helps the devotee develop these. So that's very reassuring, because sometimes we might think, oh, when am I going to have this good quality, right? Like the other night, Wednesday on Bhakti mantra night, we were singing that song of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's disappearance day. And so we were singing that song, Kabe Habe Bolo Se Dinamar, which means when, oh when, please tell me when will that day be mine, that I'll be free from all my bad qualities and that I'll have all the good qualities manifesting in my heart, all these good qualities that Krishna is describing here. And we fixed in our devotional service, unshakable in our determination to please Krishna. Okay, so we can pray like that. Now the last verse in this chapter, text 20. Ye tu dharmamritam idam yatoktam paryupasate shradadana mat parama bhaktaste tiva me priyaha. If you want to read, but you have to come closer because otherwise they won't hear you. Kritika is coming closer. Here she is.
Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. Purport. In this chapter, from verse 2 through the end, from Maya Avesya Mano Yemam, fixing the mind on me, through Ye tu Dharmam Mritam Idam, this religion of eternal engagement, the Supreme Lord has explained the process of transcendental service for approaching Him. Such processes are very dear to the Lord, and He accepts a person engaged in them. The question of who is better, one who is engaged in the path of impersonal Brahman or one who is engaged in the personal service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was raised by Arjuna, and the Lord replied to him so explicitly that there is no doubt that devotional service to the personality of Godhead is the best of all processes of spiritual realization. In other words, in this chapter, it is decided that through good association, one develops attachment for pure devotional service and thereby accepts a bona fide spiritual master, and from him begins to hear and chant and observe the regulative principles of devotional service with faith, attachment, and devotion, and thus becomes engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. This path is recommended in this chapter, therefore, there is no doubt that devotional service is the only absolute path for self realization, for the attainment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonal conception of the Supreme Absolute Truth, as described in this chapter, is recommended only up to the time one surrenders himself for self realization. In other words, as long as one does not have the chance to associate with a pure devotee, the impersonal conception may be beneficial. In the impersonal conception of the Absolute Truth, one works without fruitive result, meditates and cultivates knowledge to understand spirit and matter. This is necessary as long as one is not in the association of a pure devotee. Fortunately, if one develops directly a desire to engage in Krishna consciousness and pure devotional service, he does not need to undergo step-by-step improvements in spiritual realization. Devotional service, as described in the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, is more congenial. One need not bother about materials to keep body and soul together, because by the grace of the Lord, everything is carried out automatically. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 12th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of devotional service.
Haribo. Yeah, chapter 12. So yeah, this is a nice short chapter, short and sweet. And Srila Prabhupada in this last purport, he very beautifully ties the content of this chapter together in a nice, he like weaves it together really nicely because we discussed it in 3 sections, right? The first section is personalism versus impersonalism, right? Which is better? Arjuna started off asking, to be engaged in devotional service to you in your personal form, Krishna, or to worship the impersonal Brahman. And so Krishna made it very clear that worshiping him in his personal form is the highest, it's the best, it's the easiest, it's the safest, and the quickest way to achieve perfection, go back home, back to Godhead. And then he says that, yeah, this is the best thing, but if you can't do that, then there are other things that you can do to try to elevate yourself up to that consciousness. And Prabhupada is saying that these other processes, the things that, the kind of like concessions that Krishna gives, if you can't just think of him and serve him and engage your intelligence in him, that these are for impersonalists. Yeah, he says, because otherwise, why can't you think of Krishna? Because you don't have you can't, because we're tinged with impersonalism. And so if we're tinged with impersonalism, then, go ahead and meditate and read the scriptures and cultivate knowledge and, do charity, give in charity, do things like that until you purify yourself to the extent that, you get an attraction to the Supreme Person. And then we can actually start to think about the Supreme Person. And then the end part is that then Krishna goes back and he's like, then you can be a devotee. And then he starts glorifying all the amazing qualities of his devotees, right? Because this is one thing, like I was saying, one thing he's doing in these last verses is he's informing us of what we need to be or how we need to be, the qualities we need to have to be dear to him. But also at the same time, he's appreciating and glorifying devotees who do have those qualities. He's glorifying those who are dear to him and the qualities and their transcendental qualities, right? Just like when we have a, when we have a Vyasa Puja ceremony or something, it's the appearance day of one of our spiritual masters, or even a devotee. Sometimes we'll, on a devotee's birthday, we'll sit in a circle and have like a little appreciation circle, right? Where we'll appreciate the good qualities of that devotee. So that's basically what Krishna is doing. He's going through here and he's saying that, yeah, and my devotees are not envious. They're kind to everyone. They never think themselves the proprietor. They understand everything belongs to Krishna. They're equal in happiness and distress, honor and dishonor. They're really determined. Nothing can shake them. They never put anyone into anxiety, nor are they ever disturbed. They're free from fear because they totally take shelter of me. They're very expert in what they do. They do their services with so much care and attention and expertise and skill. And they're not in the bodily concept of life, so they don't get disturbed by, bodily pains and things. They don't get depressed by it. Yeah, they give up things that are unfavorable to my service and they accept things that are favorable. In that way, they're always very surrendered. They're very peaceful and satisfied with whatever comes easily. They don't bother talking about nonsense. They just like to talk about me or things related to my service. And yeah, they're always just trying to serve me and please me in everything that they do. It's kind of like a Krishna's Vyasa Puja offering for all of his devotees. Just like we devotees like to glorify Krishna, Krishna likes to glorify his devotees, right? That's one of his things, is that he becomes the devotee of his devotees. So here he's singing the glories of those who are devoted to him, the Bhaktiman. And so, yeah, this last one, he says, these ones are not just very dear, but they're very, very dear. This last one is where he puts an amplifier. The word ativa means very, very. So the other ones, he just says Priya, right? He just ends with Bhaktiman me Priyo. Or, yeah. But this one he's saying ativa Priya, very, very. So which one? Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal. So this is the most important thing, because somebody may be equipoised. Sometimes, even an impersonalist can be equipoised in happiness and distress. They can be satisfied. They can be not attached to any particular type of residents, or, you know, they don't talk nonsense. They just try to be quiet or speak about spiritual things. But they don't have this last quality. They're not completely engaged in devotional service with faith, making Krishna supreme goal of their lives. So this quality is exclusive to the devotees. And even in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it lists the 26 qualities of a devotee. And then there's one quality that Lord Chaitanya says that that's the actual quality, and all the other ones are kind of like decorations, you know? So, and that one quality is Krishna Eka Sharanam, which means that they surrender only to Krishna. They take shelter. Krishna is their only shelter. That's the quality of a devotee. Yeah.
Devotional service means, is it the 9 processes that is given as the devotional service?
Yeah, so we hear in Bhagavatam from Prahlad Maharaj that there are 9 processes of devotional service. Lord Chaitanya also says that in Chaitanya Charitamrita. But then also the process of devotional service means following the instructions of the spiritual master, right? So they're the 9 processes, and then also Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he gives 64 items of devotional service. So those are all also processes of devotional service. And yeah, you can read that in the Nectar of Devotion. And it starts with taking shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, hearing from the spiritual master, following the instructions of the spiritual master. So basically, it means that whatever the spiritual master instructs you to do, that's devotional service. Right? So generally, the spiritual master is going to instruct us to perform the 9 processes of devotional service and the other 64 angas of devotional service given in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And then he or she may also give us some, practical thing, like go out on book distribution, or, take charge of the Sunday Feast program, or go out and open a new center in this city where there's no Vaishnav Sangha, or, grow a vegetable garden and donate lots of vegetables to the temple for the deities, or something like that, that's not necessarily listed in the Shastras, but is an instruction and is a service that you can do for Krishna. Okay, so that's why we always need guidance, Guru, Sadhus, and Shastra, because Shastra gives us general guidelines and principles for how to perform devotional service, and then our Gurus and Sadhus give us the details of what specifically we should do, what will be a really good engagement for us according to our nature, our situation. Right? Okay. So yeah, I like how Krishna, when he's talking about the path of devotional service, he calls it dharmamritam. So dharma means, right, the path of religion, the process of religion. And he says that it's dharma amritam. It's nectarian. It's a path of nectar. Of course, amrita also means without death, or it means imperishable. So that's how Prabhupada translates it. In the translation, he says this imperishable path of devotional service. But then in the word for word, he calls it amritam. He calls it nectar. This process of religion, which is pure nectar, right? Kevala anandakanda. It's simply joyful. This process that Lord Chaitanya has given us of devotional service, and especially the Yuga Dharma of Harinam Sankirtan, chanting the holy names and spreading the holy names to every town and village. Simply joyful. Okay, so any thoughts here on this chapter 12 before we move on? Lavanga.
Yeah, I remember when I first read this chapter, well, the first couple of times, I saw this as like a checklist. Okay, I'm gonna do this, 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 and then I'm gonna become very dear to Krishna.
Yeah.
And then I realized that because Prabhupada says in the last purport how this doesn't happen extraneously, but it comes out through devotional service. And I remember like coming here and being a little bit more of an austere situation, like not having running water in the temple, having to bathe with a bucket. And then I go on the altar and I'm doing the arti, and there's no lighter to light the ghee wick. And I'm looking around for a lighter, and then somebody's like, use the incense. And then I'm like using the incense to like light all 4 and I'm like, why don't you have a lighter here? They're like, oh, somebody will steal it, you know? And
Oh
so
my God.
it's like a more like a little more austere situation. And then I was thinking, wow, like, you know, these qualities are really hard. But then I noticed the more I focused on just trying to do devotional service, trying to please Krishna, then it becomes easier. Like they automatically come out. But you know, often I was just like overthinking it. Like, okay, check this off, check this off, check this off. But you can't do it like
Yeah. Oop, you froze there, Lavanga. Yeah. So the point is that we can't, we can't just say, okay, I want this quality. I'm going to think about it, and there it is. We have to, of course, these qualities are already natural qualities for the soul, because the soul is a part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna has all the good qualities unlimitedly. And so we're qualitatively the same as the Lord. Just like a drop of water from the ocean is qualitatively has the same proportion of salt, the same proportion of minerals, the same proportion of, you know, whatever chemicals are there in the seawater is there in the little drop, but just in a tiny little amount, but proportionally the same. So all the qualities that are there in Krishna, or at least 50 of them, right? Because Krishna has 64 transcendental qualities, and there are 50 which the jivas, which we little souls have. So, and those are very nice qualities, 50 very, very nice qualities that Krishna has that we also have, but we have a small amount of them, and he has an unlimited amount of them. So then where are those qualities? Right? Why am I not manifesting those qualities? Because I'm covered by, you know, material conditioning. So when we perform devotional service, like Lavanga was saying, when we just, you know, don't dwell on our bad qualities or our lack of good qualities, and just dwell on Krishna, just focus on Krishna, put our attention on Krishna, and trying to do the best possible service we can do for him with the best possible attitude that we can muster up, then by Krishna's grace, we'll become purified of our material conditioning, which is covering all of our good qualities, and those qualities will just start to manifest, right? Like sometimes it's explained like we're like, every soul is like a beautiful diamond, glittering, flawless diamond, very valuable, very beautiful, and but the diamond is covered by mud, you know? So if you drop a diamond on the ground, and then, you know, it gets packed, it gets covered with mud. It's so covered with mud, it's like caked over. Let's say you got like a 2-inch thick layer of mud packed around the diamond. So it doesn't make the diamond any less valuable. It's just that, you know, and somebody might scoop up mud and not even know there's a diamond in it. All they see is dirt. So sometimes when we look at ourselves, we can just see a lot of mud, you know, we can see a lot of contamination. We don't see that, oh, I'm a diamond, I'm sparkly, I'm beautiful, I'm very valuable. And we can get down, we can become a little, you know, depressed or feel bad about ourselves. But yeah, we just have to remember that, yep, I'm a diamond and I'm just covered by some mud. So what do I have to do? I need to clean, get cleaning, you know, get the water, get a scrub brush, or maybe get a hammer and chisel and you know, sculpt away that hardened on, crusted on mud. And so what is our chisel and our cleaning water and our scrub brush? It's Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yeah, Lord Chaitanya specifically says about the Sankirtan, or the chanting of the holy names. He says, Chaito Darpana Marjanam, that it cleans the mirror of the mind, or cleans the consciousness, right? The word marjana literally means clean. Like a few days ago, we had the festival of Gundicha Marjanam, which happens every year just before Ratha Yatra. And that's a time when they clean the temple to prepare it for Lord Jagannath's arrival. They clean the Gundicha temple. So Ratha Yatra, they pull the carts of Jagannath Baladev Subhaji down the road, and then they take them to Gundicha Mandir, and then he stays there for some days. And so every year before he goes, they have to totally clean it, like from top to bottom, make it immaculate, because it has to be suitable for the Lord to sit there. So in the same way, yeah, we chant Hare Krishna and it's like Gundicha Marjana of the heart. We're cleaning the temple of the heart. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. And then when the heart is clean, then it's a nice, suitable place for the Lord to sit. He'll sit right there, right next to us, and he'll enjoy the beauty of the diamond, which is us, glittering like a diamond. Okay, yeah, so thank you for that point, Lavanga. I think you missed part of the answer because you got a little frozen, but everybody else heard it.
Santo Domingo Internet. Computer book.
Thank you. Okay, good. Anything else about chapter 12? And so that actually winds up the middle portion of the Bhagavad Gita. So yeah, the first 6 chapters, are mainly about karma, like karma and karma yoga. And the last 6 chapters are mainly about jnana yoga, talks about the nature of this world, the difference between matter and spirit, all that. And then the middle 6 chapters, chapters 7 to 12, are about bhakti yoga. So it's suitable that this chapter 12 ends with the glorification of bhakti and the bhakti man, the devotional service, and the person who is rendering devotional service, and the person who is the object or recipient or beneficiary of devotional service, who is Krishna, and how he reciprocates by smiling at the devotee who renders him service. Okay, so good. Let's go on to chapter 13 then. So chapter 13 is called Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. And it starts off with Arjuna he's kind of asking a question. He's not actually phrasing it as a question, but he's saying, I want to know about some things. So in one sense, he's asking a question. Arjuna uvacha prakritim purusham chaiva kshetram kshetragyam evacha etad veditum ichchami jnanam gyayam cha Keshava. And now Krishna's going to answer. Shri Bhagavan uvacha idam shariram kaunteya kshetram itya vidiyate etadyo vetti tam prahu kshetragya iti tadvidaha. Would you like to read the Vanga?
Yes, sure. Arjuna said, My dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field, and the knower of the field, and of knowledge, and the object of knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. Purport. Arjuna was inquisitive about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, Kshetra, the field, Kshetragyan, its knower, and knowledge, and the object of knowledge. When he inquired about all these, Krishna said that this body is called the field, and that one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. This body is the field of activity for the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul is entrapped in material existence, and he attempts to lord it over material nature. And so, according to his capacity to dominate material nature, he gets a field of activity. That field of activity is the body. And what is the body? The body is made of senses. The conditioned soul wants to enjoy sense gratification. And according to his capacity to enjoy sense gratification, he is offered a body or field of activity. Therefore, the body is called Kshetra, or the field of activity for the conditioned soul. Now, the person who should not identify himself with the body is called Kshetragyan, the knower of the field. It is not very difficult to understand the difference between the field and its knower, the body and the knower of the body. Any person can consider that from childhood to old age, he undergoes so many changes of body and yet is still one person. And yet is still one person remaining. There is a difference between the knower of the field of activities and the actual field of activities. A living conditioned soul can thus understand that he is different from the body. It is described in the beginning, Dehinosmin, that the living entity is within the body, and that the body is changing from childhood to boyhood, and from boyhood to youth, and from youth to old age. And the person who owns the body knows that the body is changing. The owner is distinctly Kshetra Gyan. Sometimes we think, I am happy. I am a man. I am a woman. I am a dog. I am a cat. These are the bodily designations of the knower. But the knower is different from the body. Although we may use many articles, our clothes, etc., we know that we are different from the things used. Similarly, we also understand by a little contemplation that we are different from the body. I or you or anyone else who owns the body is called Kshetra Gyan, the knower of the field of activities, and the body is called Kshetra, the field of activities itself. In the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the knower of the body, the living entity, and the position by which he can understand the Supreme Lord are described. In the middle 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the relationship between the individual soul and the supersoul in regard to devotional service are described. The superior position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the subordinate position of the individual soul are definitely defined in these chapters. The living entities are subordinate under all circumstances, but in their forgetfulness they are suffering. When enlightened by pious activities, they approach the Supreme Lord in different capacities, as the distressed, those in want of money, the inquisitive, and those in search of knowledge. That is also described. Now, starting with the 13th chapter, how the living entity comes in contact with material nature, and how he is delivered by the Supreme Lord through the different methods of fruitive activities, cultivation of knowledge, and the discharge of devotional service are explained. Although the living entity is completely different from the material body, he somehow becomes related. That is also explained.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we were seeing in the last chapter how the best thing to do is to serve Krishna and always think of him. And then Krishna said, if you can't do that, then
He'll be back to the
follow the regular principles. And if you can't do that, then get a job and donate money for the devotees. If you can't give to the devotees, then
good
give to some good cause. And if you can't even do that, then meditate. And if you can't do that, then
knowledge.
cultivate knowledge. Okay, so that's what this chapter is about. This is for people who can't do anything else. They have to cultivate knowledge because, yeah, because if you already are a devotee of Krishna, as we just heard so gloriously about in the last chapter, then it's like, you know that you're not the body, you know you're a spirit soul, you know that you're, you know, that Krishna's God and that he's the source of everything, you're meant to serve him. So, this is all kind of like spiritual life 101 here, that you're not, we're going back to you are not this body, right? Which Krishna already explained way back in chapter 2. So Krishna kind of like, he builds up, builds up, builds up, builds up, he comes to a crescendo, and then he knows that some people didn't understand that. They weren't able to go with him. He lost some people way back in like end of chapter 1. Right? So it's like that, you know, when you're teaching, you've got like a sequence of points that you're connecting. And, you know, if you have some very intelligent students, or maybe they have some background already from studying other things similar, they'll follow and they'll keep up with you, and they'll go with you to the end, to the conclusion, and they'll be totally satisfied and totally like, wow, that was great. And they'll go away feeling enlivened. But then there's always like, you know, a few members of the class that are like, I got lost after the first sentence, you know, it's like, this is totally like, unknown concepts to me, and I don't understand the technical language that you're using, and I don't have any prior knowledge about this, and this is just really new for me, right? So, of course, Krishna is speaking to Krishna is speaking Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, who, is highly qualified and he knows all these things. But Arjuna is asking because Arjuna is aware. It's like sometimes, if you're like an older devotee and you're in a class full of brand new people and somebody's giving a class and they're giving a class that's geared towards people who already have some foundation in spiritual understanding or in, process of devotional service, and they're using words and, the class is just full of content that's a little more advanced. And so so the speaker may be a guest speaker, so they don't really know the level of the audience. But somebody who's sitting there in the audience, they know that there's some very new people there, that this is all going like right over their heads, right? And so they might raise their hand and be like, what does that mean? So the person asks the question, they know what it means, but they're asking on behalf of those other people that they're really afraid are going to get lost, and they don't want them to just get up and leave because they don't understand anything. So that's what Arjuna is kind of doing here, right? Arjuna understands all these things very well, but now he's like, oh, Krishna, you talked about Prakriti way back, a few chapters ago. What is Prakriti? And you mentioned Purusha. Who is the Purusha? And what is the field of activities, and what is the goal of knowledge, and what is knowledge anyway? He's just going back to like square one. So that's for, people who are not on the level of Arjuna, people who are more like us, who are still on the bodily concept of life, right? Thinking we're the body, thinking that, to enjoy our senses is the goal of life. And we have this very obstinate misconceptions about who we are and what we're meant to do. So this is very helpful. So Arjuna asks about 5 things, right? Prakriti means material nature. Purusha means the supreme person. The field was kshetra, the knower of the field, kshetragya, knowledge, which is jnanam, and the object of knowledge, which is gyayam. So it's that 6 things: Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetragya, Gyan, Gyayam. 6 things. He asks about 6 things. And so this verse that we just read is 1 and 2 together. So in verse 2, Krishna answers the first 2. He defines 2 of these 6 things. Not in order, but he picks out 2. So he defines Kshetra and Kshetragya. So Kshetra means the body. And Kshetragya means the knower within the body, who is the soul. Of course, in the next verse, he's going to say there's also another knower. There are 2 Kshetragyas, actually. In every body, there are 2 knowers of that body. And one is ourselves, me, the individual soul, and the other, Krishna will tell us in text 3, is the super soul. So the super soul, Paramatma, is an expansion of Krishna who is situated in the heart of all living beings, right next to the soul, and is who knows everything that's going on in our bodies, everything that's going on in our minds, all of our thoughts, feelings, pains, pleasures. And the Paramatma is different from us because we know only the pains and pleasures of our own body, but the Paramatma knows the pains and pleasures and thoughts and feelings of everybody, of everyone, of all living entities. So we're very limited. We're limited just ourselves. And Krishna is unlimited. His knowledge is unlimited. So I'd like to think of this as, because Arjuna uses this language and Krishna continues with this language of field and the knower of the field. So kshetra literally means a field, right? The battle, this is taking place on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So Kurukshetra is the field of the Kurus, right? It's the Kurus field, right? Like if you have a farmer who lives next to you, then there's a big field, behind your house, and somebody would say, oh, is that your land? And you'll say, no, it's Farmer Brown's field, right? So Kurukshetra means the Kuru's field. This is the Kuru's field. So this word kshetra just literally means field. So if you think about it as like a farmer's field, this body is a field, and we are the farmers. I'm the farmer, and this is my field. So I have a field. So what does a farmer do with his field? He prepares it, he cultivates it, right? He uses that land, he uses the soil. Well, first of all, he has to go in, like if, say a farmer buys a piece of land, then he has a new field. So now he bought a new field. So he has to get to know his field. He has to go there and do some soil tests and see, what kind of soil is it? Is it sandy? Is it more clayey? Is it fertile or is it barren? Is it like salty? Or is it arable land, can plant, is it fertile? Yeah, so he needs to know the field. Does it have a good drainage? Is it in a flood zone? Whatever, all the different, he needs to know about his field. What crops have been planted there in the past? What fertilizers have been used? Have any chemical pesticides been used that might, have poison, make my vegetables poisonous? He needs to know the field. And then when he knows the field, then he knows how to use it. So because certain crops do better in certain soil types, right? Some crops, they need like rice, it needs a very wet, clay kind of soil, which will hold water and it grows basically in the mud. And then other crops, they need a more sandy, very well-drained field, and some different crops need different. Anyways, you got the idea. So we need to know our field so we know how to use it. And that's basically what Varnashram Dharma is. Right? Varnashram Dharma means knowing your field and using it accordingly, using it in the right way. So, yeah, we have to know our nature. So we all have a type of particular body, a physical body, that's certain age, certain gender, certain whatever, race, culture. And so according to that, there'll be some, we'll use the body according to just, like in most cultures, there are still some occupations and things that are like generally tend to be like male-oriented or female-oriented kinds of occupations and things, right? So according to the body, then I have a certain dharma, right? Like in the Vedic culture, there's a Stri Dharma, there's dharma for women. So yeah, so like taking care of children, that's tends to be naturally, traditionally, biologically women's work, right? Because women have the equipment to feed a baby, to provide, mother's milk for a growing baby. So yeah, things like that. And then and then our psychological nature, right? So everyone has a certain physical nature and everyone has a certain psychological nature also, a certain mentality, certain proclivities. And yeah, so we put all these things together. Like if someone's very physically strong, they'll be suited for certain types of work. If they're not, if they're kind of like, weak and not very healthy, then there's still many things they can do, but they maybe can't do something that's super physically active. So yeah, so kshetragya means we need to know our bodies and we need to know what we can do with our bodies. What is our skill set? What are our physical and mental capabilities, intellectual capabilities? And then we need to know what is the purpose, right? What is the goal, or how I know who I am and what I'm not, and I know what I can do. So now, what should I use my skills for? What is my purpose? And then that's also, Krishna's going to talk about that the purpose is what this body is meant to be used for is devotional service. So I may have a lot of nice skills, but if I just use them for my sense gratification, then it's not going to help me. I have to use them in the service of Krishna. And that's part of knowing, that's part of this knowledge, right? Knowing what's to be done, what's not to be done. Like that. What is religion? What is irreligion? That's all part of these later 6 chapters that we're going to hear about from Krishna. All right. So next purport's very long and we only have 5 minutes. So let's just stop here and we can take some questions. Yeah, Pragati?
So when you said that we need to know our nature,
Hmm.
and then you said like physical nature, psychological nature, or like how do we know our internal psychological nature? like how we are, and then I understand that our basic nature is we are the servant of Krishna, like
Yeah,
the servant mode.
yeah,
But how do we understand the current nature so that we can progress?
yeah. Well, yeah, like I was mentioning, there's the whole system of varnashram, right? So like varna means your occupation, and ashram means your stage of life. So according to the stage of life that we're in, then there are certain um, uh, activities, right? There are certain things that we should do. For example, for a person who's like young person, age 5 to 25, then the emphasis is on education, right? That's what that ashram is meant for. That's brahmachari ashram traditionally is student life where you just focus on education, you're celibate, you accept a teacher, a spiritual master, and you're trained in principles of, good behavior, good character, basic knowledge, of how to function in this world, academic knowledge, values, things like that, values education. So that's brahmacharya ashram, and then grihastha. Then after age 25, then for most people, it's recommended that you get married, right? Get yourself a partner, be regulated, be responsible, use the skills and education that you've learned in your student stage of life. Now put them to work to make a contribution to society, right? Contribute to society in ways that are valuable, not just that earn you money, but that are actually adding value to your society and community, country, and to the world, ideally. So then, of course, from that, because you're giving value, you're also going to receive value back. So you're going to get some income, which you're going to be able to use to provide for your family and donate to your temple and community projects and things like that. So that's Grihastha ashram. It's meant for, expanding your situation, contributing in a big way uh, with your skills, earning, and contributing again. So it's about giving, receiving, giving, like that. Then, so then after you get a little older, maybe like middle age in your 50s or so, and your children are grown up, then your body's starting to get old. Then it's time to be a little more detached, right? It's time to downscale and, simplify your life and be a little austere and get back to really seriously cultivating higher ideals and worshiping the Lord and being meditative and spiritual and studying the scriptures again, like that. Because now it's like you get into the end of life and time to prepare for death. And so gradually we have to, because at the end of this life, we have to let go of everything, right? Even this body. We have to say goodbye to everything. Goodbye to our home, goodbye to our family, goodbye to our money, goodbye to all of our assets, goodbye to this body, goodbye to everything that we did. So it's good to one great devotee, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, said that you have to die before you die. In other words, just like detach yourself from all these things before you go, and then it's so easy, then you just connect yourself to Krishna and you hold tight to Krishna, Krishna's names, Krishna's service, Krishna's devotees, Krishna's holy places, and then you just go to Krishna very seamlessly. So that's the Varna part. So everyone, we have a different nature. Like children have a certain nature, adults have a nature, middle-aged. So our nature changes as we pass through these life phases, and our activities change accordingly, right? So then also there's Varna, and then Varna means your occupation that you have like a propensity for. And so that depends on, factors from previous lifetimes and things like that usually. So yeah, some people are more like artistically inclined. They like to build things, make things, creative, like that, add beauty to society. They really value beauty and functionality. So then they'll work in, crafts or performing arts or design, construction, things like that, architecture, engineering, like that. And then there are people who value what is it? basically wealth. So then those are people who will do business and be productive. They like to trade, like produce. So they'll being involved in like agriculture and then taking goods to the market, right? Or business, industry, things like that. So that's a certain nature that those people, they tend to be like more passionate, right? I want to make something, I want to do something, I want to earn money and produce, right? And then there's people who are more into governance, right? They like to manage, they like to oversee, they like to uh, enforce laws, and make sure they have a keen sense of justice, right? So then they'll be involved in governance. And then there are people that are really into knowledge. They value knowledge. So they want to cultivate knowledge even past their student years. They're like lifelong learners. They want to teach knowledge to others, impart knowledge to the world, engage people in higher pursuits, right? Spiritual pursuits, and be spiritual teachers also, not just teachers of, mundane academics or something. So yeah, so that's another nature. So then basically the nature that we have that makes us suited to a particular varna or occupation is based on what we value, right? So we have to think of what we value. And the things that we value are basically six. And they correspond to the six opulences of Krishna that make him Bhagavan, right? So there's wealth, beauty, strength, knowledge, renunciation, fame, and yeah. So if you value strength and beauty, then that makes you towards, you'll have a tendency towards Shudra Varna, right? Which is like the arts, because strength, like, because you work with your body, and beauty, you add beauty to the world. You have a keen aesthetic sense. There's so many different, like gray area, like ways that can, like permutations of those things. But basically, yeah, those. And then, so then if you value wealth and what's the other one? I wish I had them written down on paper. Okay, so it's strength and beauty are Shudra, knowledge and renunciation are Brahmin, fame and oh, they need to be eight. So fame and strength, yeah, fame and strength are Kshatriya, and Vaishya is wealth and something else. Anyways, there's six opulences and there's eight, like there's four varnas, and if they each have two, so there's like overlap and they're mixed that way. But anyways, you got the idea, right? So we have to just see, what do you value? What is it that you can't live without? Right? Think of, so in different occupations provide us with different types of prosperity, right? So for myself, I need to be dealing with knowledge, right? If I'm doing a job, I can be good at it. Like I can go and work in a garden and feel good about that. And, I'm happy that my body's getting fit and healthy and I'm adding beauty to the world. And it's nice, it's all good things, but it's kind of mindless activity in one sense, pulling weeds and, moving dirt and things. I'll enjoy it for a short time, but I'll go crazy because I need to be connected with knowledge, right? But for myself, like I'm not that bothered about beauty. For example, I don't dress nicely. I just wear the simplest clothes ever. Some women, it's like they would need silks, they need jewelry. I don't wear even earrings. I never wore makeup in my life. I just tie my hair back and don't bother with it. Just like I've always been like that. My mother, when I was a kid, she would always criticize me, can't you dress nicely? I'm like, who cares? And even my room is very simple, like I don't need paintings on the wall. I don't need plants. I don't need vases. I just need it to be simple and clean, but I need it to be full of books. Like Lavanga shelf. I need to have like a nice bookshelf and, my computer where I can go on database, and I need to have access to knowledge. And another thing is that I need freedom, right? I value renunciation. I don't like being tied down. So as soon as somebody starts to like possess me or restrict me or tell me that I can't go somewhere when I want to travel somewhere, then I start being like, all right, I need to like change my situation here. It's not working for me. All right. Yes, Kritika.
Like doing something, or like you, when you do that, you feel like really fulfilled, or like for example, if I do some, like for me, it's like I'm very like with art, something artistic. If I do it, I really feel good. So is it like that? What you like you
Well, see, there are things that we can do. There are hobbies that we can have. Like sometimes you have a hobby that you do it and you feel happy, you feel good that you did it, but you're not going to do like that. It can't be, it won't be your career, right? Like you like to draw and paint, but could you just do that, No, it's like fun to do it sometime, but you couldn't do that like 40 hours a week, You'd just go nuts. You'd feel like you're just wasting your time, your life, right? Whereas if somebody's really an artist, then that's what they do. They just eat, sleep, and breathe that, and they're happy. And if they're in another job where they can't do art, they're like dying, you know? Yeah, it's basically the things that you can't live without. Like my life, I cannot be happy without knowledge. I can't be happy without being detached, right? I can be happy without beauty. I can live something very plain, and so I can be happy without let's see what without wealth. Like I can live it very simply. I don't need opulence at all. I can literally live in a tent and be fine as long as I have like books to read and people to discuss philosophical ideas with.
So, nature if you're towards knowledge and relaxation.
Yeah. So that's how you can know. So just look at those opulences, those 6 opulences, and see which ones can I not live without? Which ones, like if I'm deprived of those things, am I just going to like, you know, feel like going to a hole and dying? Lavanga, you got your hand up there.
Yeah, another way to put what you just said. You said think what you can't live without. I've also heard some devotees say, think about that activity that you would like give up sleep for, or that you could do even in your sleep. So
Yeah.
like I noticed when my son was very young, when he was in Mayapur, a lot of people were pushing me to get him to learn mridanga because all the boys learn how to play mridanga.
Yeah.
And he hated like he I don't want to say he hated it, but he just wasn't a big fan of
No interest.
just sitting there and doing mridanga. But if you started talking to him about the TOVP and the Vedic cosmology and how all the universe, he was all into that. Like he loved it, and he was doing all this different research and stuff like that. And I would have to tell him to go to bed because he would be up on his iPad looking up videos on YouTube about all this stuff.
Wow.
So, and then also like with myself, when I was thinking like that, okay, what is this activity that I could give up sleep for? I noticed that sometimes I would be staying up late reading Bhagavatam or like doing research on this particular topic and then realizing, I have to go to bed. I can't, I gotta get up in the morning. So yeah, that's another way to think of it.
Yeah. And that's why you're here at the Bhagavad Gita class. Right.
Yeah, right.
Good. Yeah. So it's important to know ourselves. Otherwise, we can get stuck in an occupation that is not according to our nature. And Krishna says that everyone acts helplessly according to the nature that they've acquired, according to the influence of the 3 modes. What can repression accomplish? So we can't repress our nature. And Krishna is telling Arjuna here in the Bhagavad Gita that Arjuna, you're a Kshatriya, you have this nature. You have a Kshatriya nature means that you have a keen sense of justice. You can't tolerate injustice. And these, Kauravas are doing such unfair things. They're mistreating you. They're corrupt. You're not going to be able to, your blood is going to boil if you just let them be the king, let them rule. It's not going to work for you. And you're thinking that you don't want to fight, you don't want to kill your family members, you can just go to the forest and, live with the rishis there. It's not going to work because, that's not who you are. That's not what you're meant to do. And you're just going to get restless and you're going to pick fights with the rishis or whatever, you'll be out hunting and things just to use your passion, your strength, because you value strength. So Yeah. Arjuna's like, you're a warrior, you have to fight. That's it. You can't run away from it. So yeah, our nature is that we shouldn't try to run away from it. So we really have to know who we are, what are our qualities, how can we use them in Krishna's service, or at least in the service of, whatever, even if we can use them in a career sense and out in the world, and then earn money that way and use the money in Krishna's service. So directly or indirectly, we need to serve Krishna using our nature. Yeah, Pragati?
Oh, nice. So, when like I understood, like when they say the conditional soul wants to enjoy sense gratification, and according to his capacity to enjoy the sense gratification, they get the body.
Yeah.
So, how much a soul wants to enjoy? So, if the soul wants the
It means they're like according to his karma, right? Because it's like we may desire something, but according to our karma, we don't deserve. So the capacity in that sense is determined by the karma. So everybody wants to enjoy, right? But you may not not have the karmic credit to enjoy. So then you get a certain body where, you don't enjoy so much. Like somebody who is very healthy, very beautiful, very wealthy, they have more capacity to enjoy. That's because of their good karma. They were born in with a beautiful body and, a lot of a nice, comfortable situation with plenty of money and stuff. So then they can enjoy more.
And then if they say according to his capacity to dominate material nature, he gets a field of activity. To dominate, but
Same thing.
same.
Yeah, so the enjoyment, yeah, because in this world, everybody wants to control and enjoy. So according to your karma, you get like a particular level of facility which allows you to either enjoy or control. Right? So there are people in this world who have a lot of power, and then there are other people who are relatively powerless. Right? So that's karma. It's dependent on karma. Yeah. So yeah, we get a body according to our karma. That's what Bhagavatam says. It says karma daivane trena, that according to our karma, the higher beings, the devas, the Lord, basically, according to our karma, the Lord arranges for us to get a particular type of body. And that verse says karma daivane trena. I can't remember the last 3 lines, but it talks about how according to one's karma and the Lord's supervision, the soul will enter into a particle of male semen and be injected into the womb of a particular mother, and a particular body will develop. So that happens according to our karma. Yep. So the best thing is to perform pure devotional service, because then we become karma free, and then we're not bound by these karmic limitations, and then the sky's the limit. Anything can happen, right? There's no limit to what we can do, because everything just depends on Krishna's mercy and Krishna's empowerment.
Okay, so if you are engaged in devotional service, then this classification, it still applies to you, but you are like, you're still expanded, or like.
Well, the thing is that if you're a pure devotee, then you transcend the modes of nature, and so you also transcend varnashram. But if you're not a pure devotee, which is the case that we're mixed devotees, so then we need to act according, right? To the extent that we're still on the bodily concept of life and they're still feeling pains and pleasures of this body, then we need to work with our field, right? To the extent that we're still standing like a farmer in the field, we need to work with the field.
Yeah.
But if the farmer, goes up in an airplane, is flying in the sky and going off to another country, then the field is no longer relevant. He's not in the field anymore, right? Okay, Jai, we have to end. We're over time. Thank you all for attending. I'm just gonna take a look and see if I have some friends here on YouTube. Oh, just a second. Okay, so we have Sandeep Singh. Everyone's just saying Hare Krishna. Thank you for your Hare Krishnas and for your attendance. And hopefully gonna see you tomorrow. The YouTube viewers. All right, Jai, thank you for coming. Lavanga, please come again.
Of
And
course.
thank you to Alia and Divya my loyal customers, and Pragati and Aruna and Kritika, who are here with me in person. Some
Thank
here,
you,
some
Prabhupada
there.
Priya.
And to all those who will hear this class in the future, Hare Krishna.
Hey, Krishna.
Thank you. Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Jai.